In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, how to start plants from seeds, and for the growing tip, 3 tips for starting a mealworm colony. Welcome to greenhorngardening.com. I'm Damon, and I'm on a mission to help you grow your own vegetable garden. Just like I said last week, we got something new using tools. If you want the top 5 tools to use in your 2013 garden, go on over to greenhorngardening.com /top tools and get your free ebook there on the top tools for 2013. A lot going on here behind the scenes at the Greenhorn Gardening. First of all, a lot of you absolutely love the interview I had with my mom last week. And it's just amazing the world we live in, where your own life experiences actually mean something to people and helping them in doing things and helping people along their journey and things like that. And I just never would have thought all the stories that I heard my mom talk about my grandmother and her time. I just never thought that whoever would have thought that would have, mean something to people. And so that's the first. Thanks to all you who have sent in comments on that. And here's one thing: today, the 5th of March, is her birthday, believe it or not. And I sent this out a little earlier in the week for to people on the to people on the e-newsletter at greenhorngardening.com, asking for those of you who really did like it, send in comments and how much you liked about it, because she kind of likes that kind of thing. She likes scrapbooking. I figure I could take these things, print them out, and give her that as a birthday present. In fact, I've already told her about it, and she really loved it. She got a kick out of hearing me read a lot of people's things, and she wanted me to print them out. So I'm putting this out there for all of you who really did like her the interview, to just either send me a message at damon@greenhorngardening.com, or you can get on Twitter and leave a quick something there, or you can get on YouTube, leave a message there at Greenhorn Gardening, or just go on over to the blog and just leave a comment there on the blog for episode 79. That was the last episode. And I can take all those, print them all out, put them in a nice little package. She'll take it and put it in a scrapbook. She does some scrapbooking from time to time, and this is one of those things that she would definitely appreciate from all you guys. And I like I say, a lot of you guys want her back, and I'm going to see if we can't get her back sometime in the future, in the near future, hopefully. And also maybe we can sit down sometime during spring break, when we're really when here in the Greenhorn Gardening really kind of getting going and doing a lot of the gardening stuff. Just sit down with a camera, sit down with a microphone, and just talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And maybe we can get something, put together for you guys that way. And so there's that. Still working on the Greenhorn, on the Springtime Growers course. Still working on that, and hopefully we'll have that ready, at least in a first form by this Wednesday, this Saturday, which brings up another thing. This Saturday I'm putting on a live training, a free live training, a webinar basically. And what I'll do is just go on over to the blog, and the title of the webinar is the top 3 components for your spring garden, and that's the main subject. And that is a free webinar that will happen this Saturday. Let me check the calendar here. Yes, this Saturday, March the 9th at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now I have a webinar page there. I will put a link to that in the show notes for those of you who are interested in that, and that's free. You can you can view it online. I found a very cost-effective webinar service that I'm going to experiment with using, because I've been wanting to put on a webinar for over a year now, but it's one of those things where you just don't get around to it, and there's 100 million excuses. And so I just decided to stop making excuses and just schedule one, and just kind of the old come hell or high water, as we say, just get it done. And so that's So there's that. And so this Saturday, plan on that webinar being there. I'll send out another email to you guys who are on the subscription list, the e-newsletter list, to as a reminder of that. Or you can go on over to the blog, look at episode 80. You'll see the link there, the webinar thing. Another thing I'm thinking of doing, I got a lot of projects and things to do, but not enough time to do them. I know some of you, at least one of you, and I've actually a couple of you have asked about marketing, about doing the kinds of things that I do here at Greenhorn Gardening with the podcasts and the videos and the blogs and all of that. And I know some of you have actually gone on to get involved in your own in the farmers markets. You've just gone from just being gardeners to actually being market gardeners. And some of you are, I know someone who contacted me earlier this year asking about, ways that they could do that. And so I'm thinking about putting together a web TV show, Greenhorn Gardening, the Market Farmers web TV show, and be exclusively on YouTube. It'll probably be about 3 times a month, pretty much like this podcast, but it'll be exclusively about how to produce content and how, and it's specifically designed, would be specifically designed for small scale farmers, market gardeners, market farmers, people whose primary means of sale is directly to the consumer. And I'm just kicking that idea around. I think sometimes when I tell you guys about these things, it really gets me motivated to actually get it done, as opposed to me just kicking it around in my head. And you'll be like 3 years from now, I still haven't gotten it done. So that's part of the reason I love doing Greenhorn Gardening, because in order for me to do this, I have to actually get out there in the garden and do this stuff. Let me adjust the gain a little bit here. It helps me a little bit too much heat on it here in the old ears. We've got old musicians' ears, and spent many years in music and many years just destroying. I'm amazed that I can even hear anything, but according to the audiologist, my hearing is perfect, even though I've abused them like crazy being in music for so many years. But anyway, so there's that. So we got the springtime growers course coming up, the mom's birthday. Please send in your emails there and comments there. The webinar coming up this Saturday, and the Market Farmers web TV show is still on the slate, and I will let you guys know more about that as time goes on. With all that, let's just jump on into the main subject. Okay, so starting plants from seed. Now what I'm going to do is read from F.F. Rockwell. You've heard me talk about him from time to time. He was a early 20th century writer. I'm reading from Gardening Indoors and Under Glass. It's published in 1912, and he's written several books, and he's editor of several things, including a piece in the New York Times. I will include probably a link to his bio, kind of the one that's on Wikipedia and the blog post, but I love this book because it's 100 years old, and he's talking about so many things that, really not much has changed in the way that plants grow. Let me adjust the light here. I got one of these color-corrected lights that makes it look like daylight. It's really nice to read from one of these. But here we go. Chapter 4 from Gardening Indoors and Under Glass by F.F. Rockwell, 1912. Chapter 4, Starting Plants from Seed. One of the ways of getting a supply of plants for the house is to start them from seed. With a number of varieties, better specimens may be obtained by this method than by any other. Most of the annuals and many of the biennials and perennials are best reproduced in this way. Simple as the art of starting plants from seed it may seem, there are a number of things which must be thought of and done correctly. We must give the proper situation, soil, temperature, covering, and amount of moisture, and when once above ground they need careful attention until lifted and started on their way as individual plants. The number of plants of one sort which will be required for the house is naturally not large, and For that reason, beginners often try to start seeds in pots, but a pot is not a good thing to try to start plants in. The amount of earth is too small and dries out quickly. Seed pans are better, but even they must be watched very carefully. A wooden box or a flat is better still. Cigar boxes are often used with good results, but a more satisfactory way is to make a few regular flats from a soap or cracker box bought at the grocer's. Saw it lengthwise into sections 2 inches deep, being careful to first draw out nails and wire staples in the way, and bottom these with materials of the same sort. Either leave the bottom boards half an inch apart or bore 7 or 8 half-inch holes in the bottom of each to provide thorough drainage. If they are to be used in the house, a coat or two of paint will make them very presentable. Of course, one such box will accommodate a great many seeds, enough to start 200 to 1,000 little plants, but you can sow them in rows, as described later, and thus put from 2 to 3 dozen sorts in each box. Where most beginners fail in attempting to start seeds is not in taking the trouble to prepare a proper soil. They are willing to take any amount of trouble with watering and heat and all that, but that will not fix a suitable soil. The soil for the seed box need not be rich. In fact, it is better not to have manure in it, but very porous and very light it must be, especially for such small seeds as most flowers have. Such a soil may be mixed up from rotted sod or garden loam, leaf mold, and sharp sand used in equal proportions. If the loam used is clay, it may take an even larger portion of sand. The resulting mixture should be an extremely fine, crumbly, and feeling almost as light as a feather in the hand. If the sod and mold have not already been screened, rub the compost through a sieve of not more than a 1/4 inch mesh, such as a coal ash sifter. The screening will help also to incorporate the several ingredients evenly and thoroughly. While we provided holes in the seed box for drainage, it is best to take even further precautions in this matter by covering the bottom of the box with nearly an inch of coarse material, such as the roots and half-decayed leaves screened out of the sods and leaf mold. On top of this, put prepared soil, filling the box with about 1/4 inch on the top, and packing well into its corners along the sides and ends. The box should not be filled full level, because the subsequent waterings, there would be no place to hold water, which would run off the sides and instead of soaking down into the soil. The usual way is to fill the boxes and sow the seed and then water the box on the surface, but I mention here a method which I have used in my own work for 2 years. When filling the boxes, set it in some place where it can be watered freely, such as on the cellar floor. If not too cold, work outdoors. After putting in the first layer of coarse material, give it a thorough soaking, and then put about 2/3 of the rest of the soil required. And then put in about 2/3 of the rest of the soil required, and give that a thorough soaking also. The balance of the soil is then put in and made level. The seeds sown and no further water given, or just enough to moisten the surface to hold it in place if dry. The same result can be obtained by filling and sewing the box in the usual way and placing it someplace, such as the kitchen sink, in about 1 inch of water, and leaving it until moisture, not water, shows up on the surface. Either of these ways is much surer than the old method of trying to soak the soil through from the surface after planting, in which case it's next to impossible to wet the soil clear through without washing out some of the small seeds. After filling the box as directed, make the soil perfectly smooth and level with a small flat piece of board or brick. Do not pack it down hard, just make it firm. Then mark off straight and narrow lines 1 or 2 inches apart according to the size of the seeds sown. The instructions usually given are to cover flower seeds to from 3 to 5 times their own depth. You may, if you like, take a foot rule and try to measure the diameter of some incredibly unpronounceable plant that I'm not going to even try, but you will also, but you will probably save time by simply trying to cover small seeds just lightly as possible. I mark off my seed rows with the point of a lead pencil, which I have handy back of the ear for writing tags. Sow the seeds thinly and as evenly as possible by shaking it out gently out of the corner of the seed envelope, which is tapped lightly with the lead pencil, and then press each row down the edge of the board about as thick as a shingle. Over the whole, scatter coconut fiber, which may be bought of most seedmen, or lightly prepared soil as thinly as possible. Just cover the seeds from sight and press the surface flat with a piece of board. A very light moistening with the plant sprinkler completes the operation. The temperature required in which to start the seeds of any plant will be about the same as which the plant is required to grow. Germination will be stronger and quicker, however, if 10 to 15 degrees more, especially at night, can be supplied. If this can be given as what the florists term bottom heat, that is, applied under the bottom, so much the better. Until germination actually takes place, there is little danger of getting the soil too warm, as it heats through from the bottom very slowly. The box may be placed on a steam radiator. Just imagine that. Does anybody even have a steam radiator these days? The box may be placed on a steam radiator, on a stand over the floor radiator, or on a couple of bricks on the back of the kitchen range, or on a box, or the box may be supported over a lamp or small kerosene stove, care being taken to have a piece of metal between the wood and the direct heat of the flame. For the first few days it may be kept in the shade, but as soon as the seeds push through, they must be given all light possible. If the seed flats or pans are prepared by newer methods suggested above, they will probably not need any further watering, or not more than once. The necessity of further watering in any case will be shown by the soil's drying out on the surface. In the case of small seeds, such as most flower seeds are, the moisture in the soil will be retained much longer by keeping the box covered with a pane of glass slightly raised in one side. If the box is to be kept in bright sunlight, shade the glass with a piece of paper until the seedlings are up, which may be in a day or so with some sorts and weeks with others. From time to time, the little plants will come up until they are ready to pick off in other flats or into pots. The boxes should never be allowed to dry out. If they are being grown in winter or early spring, while the days are still short and the sun is low, they will require very little water, and it should be applied only on bright mornings. In autumn and late spring, especially the latter, they will require more. If the boxes dry out quickly, you should apply it toward evening. In either case, do not water until the soil is beginning to dry out on the surface, and then water thoroughly or until the soil will not readily absorb more. If you will take the pains and have the facilities for doing it, by far the best way to keep seed boxes supplied with moisture is to place them, when dry, in an inch of water, or as described for sowing seeds, and let them soak up what they need or until the surface becomes moist. This does the job more evenly and more thoroughly than can be done from the surface, and is also a safeguard against dampening off, that dreaded disease of seedlings in which they carry away your whole sowing in one day, a decaying of the stem at or below the soil. From the time the seeds come up, they should be given abundance of light and all the air as possible, while maintaining required temperature. It may be possible, except on very cold days, to give them fresh air. Never, however, let a draught of air more than a few degrees colder than the room in which they are blow directly upon them. The secret of growing the little plants until they are ready for their first shift is not so much in the amount of care given, but in its regularity. Tend them every day, and it only takes a few minutes' time. When the second true leaf appears, it will be ready for the first change, as described in chapter 6. Okay, so mealworms, darkling beetles is what I use. I use these for fish bait. In fact, I use these little things. These are basically the larval form of darkling beetles. I take them. I don't know. These things grow about an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter long. And I take them and I use them to catch bait fish. And then I take that bait fish and use it to catch bigger fish. Maybe either take the bait fish and cut them up and use them as cut bait to catch catfish, or just use them whole to catch bass or various kinds of other fish, you know. And it works. But some people like to grow mealworms to feed their reptiles. Some people like to grow mealworms to feed their birds, pet birds. It's a very cost-effective way to feed some of your pets, like reptiles and birds, and it's a cost-effective way to buy bait, you know, to catch bait to catch fish. And so where do you buy it? I forget. I bought mine from where did I buy it? From a place in Louisiana. I think it was Armstrong's Cricket Farm. They had a pretty good deal on mealworms. I bought several thousand from them back during the summer, I believe. And then what I did was I put it in a container, about a flat container, about a couple of feet long, it's about I don't know, a couple of 3 feet long, about 2 feet wide, something like that. And you put their bedding with what is that stuff called? Wheat. What is that stuff? Not wheat germ, but that's one of the things. It's yeah. What I can't. It's kind of like oatmeal, except it's wheat bran. That's what you buy. You can go to your farmer's market and get some feed grade wheat bran. Either the farmer's market or feed and seed store. I bought 10 pounds of this stuff for like $2.50. Very cheap. And you just put that in there. And then they tend to like egg crates. If you can get the, you know, the recycled kind of egg crates, they seem to like that structure a lot, and they kind of hang out under there. And then you maybe put a stick of wood in there, and you maybe put some lettuce in there. And lettuce or just about anything green leafy, and they'll eat that, and that's how they get their water. And then the main thing is the cleaning and the maintenance. Once they eat through, once they grow up, lay their eggs, and you'll get thousands and thousands of these little larval things, and they'll just eat through all that bedding, and that bedding will just turn to poop. You'll know it because it started having that kind of ammonia aroma to it. So what you have to do is you have to take it out and put it in a sifter. And I found a cool little sifter, basically a windscreen that you can get from the hardware store. You know, it's almost like a built-in double sifter, and it gets it done very quickly and efficiently. So I don't have to be sitting here all afternoon trying to get all the little worms out and don't know if I've, you know, thrown half of them away or what, you know. But so that's, and I had some people asking me about that on YouTube, and I'm going to be I'm about to do some maintenance on one of my on my mealworm colony that I have this week, and I just figured why not do that as a growing tip. So there you go, folks. 3 tips. You know, buy them from Armstrong's Cricket Farm. Use a plastic container. Get you some wheat bran, and clean and maintain it. There you go, folks. Mealworms. Well, the clock on the wall says we've had a ball, so hey, if you guys have the time, remember, go check out that greenhorngardening.com/top tools to get those 5 top tools that I use here in the Greenhorn Garden. And with that, I tell you what, I got a few outtakes for you. Take a listen to them. Let me know what you think. Testing. Main subject. Okay. Starting seeds. I'm just going to read straight from Rockwell. Should be fairly simple. Okay, so the main subject, starting seeds, starting plants from seed. Now, what I'm going to do is just read straight from F.F. Rockwell this time. I haven't done this in a while. You know, F.F. Rockwell is one of my favorites. You know, yeah, let's just start over. Oh, man. I always get tongue-tied and tongue-twisted. In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I talk about all right. Okay. In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I talk about starting plants from seeds, and for the growing tip, 3 tips for starting. Dude, was I doing the? Oh crap! Oh man! All right, let's try that again. Take 7. In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I talk about starting plants from seeds. Do I talk? I do talk, but I don't want it to be me. Okay, so in episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I share. No. These things never. Starting plants from seeds. Starting plants from seeds. Yeah, let's just go with that. In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I talk about starting plants from seeds, and for the growing tip, 3 tips for starting a mealworm colony. Let's try that. That word starting comes up twice. 3 tips for... Okay, we can just go with it. In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I just have to write this out. Save. In episode 80 of Greenhorn Gardening, I talk about starting plants from seeds. How to, that's how to start plants from seeds, yeah. Save. Okay, here we go.